Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost
Do you need a couple of notes on this one, or?
there. Not really, because we're not taking action. It's just a workshop.
All right, I do have 7:15, so we'll go ahead and call this workshop to order. This is the budget workshop for 2023 for the Arlington Public School District. Dr. Lewis, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you.
And then we'll just kind of talk through it with what
Yeah.
we've done with the finance committee and anyone who's been part of that, those conversations. These things have changed a lot this year.
They have, yeah.
Yeah, so I just kind of started with an agenda, so we're gonna talk about some timelines, and then we're gonna look at the specific budget line items, some changes to the process, and some new information on the actual budget document. We're gonna get some projected valuations, and then a conversation near the end to talk about a new thing that's in the law. So first timelines, and like everybody in this room is aware, but we begin, man, I thought it was much better than that. Wonder if
It's hard to see when your back's to it, that's all.
Oh, that's
So-
for sure.
Yeah.
So, but everyone in this room knows that we start, basically as soon as this budget is submitted, we'll start on the next one. So this is due October 15th is your hard and fast deadline, and then we start negotiations before November even begins. So that's when we started this budget process, was last October when we started negotiations with the certificated staff, which was followed by the admin and the non-certificated. Then we approved building level budgets and some district level budgeted items. And there's still a little bit of flexibility in some of those, and we'll get to that. So this year, things that impacted us a little bit, the changes in the laws that were kind of impending and signed into law late May or early June was caused a little bit of a delay in the budget document being released about a week or so later than normal, maybe a little bit longer than that. It didn't really slow down our process. It just, I couldn't get everything into the document at the time. Like I tried to get a lot of that done before July, and I couldn't get it done until after July. We don't have certified valuations yet, so those will be released either this Friday or the following Monday, depending on how the county does it. The budget hearing and the levy request hearing, we have those in September before the board meeting there. The budget and levy resolution are adopted on the September board meeting. The budget needs to be submitted to the state by September 30th. And then at the latest, your levy resolution has to be the county by October 15th. Normally you would just do that with the budget, but they give you additional time on that with the postcard hearing in case anybody wanted to change that after the joint agency meetings last year. So they extended that last year. That used to be the 30th also. Okay, so line items. We've looked at these quite a bit in committee. These are a reflection of all of those things that we've already approved, like our salaries, our benefits that came to negotiations, all those building level budgets that we approved in the spring, and some district level budgets that we looked at, I think, in about June. So differences in most of these categories were due to the salaries increase and benefits that went along with that. I'm going to come down here and we're going to kind of talk. Oops, I'm sorry, did the wrong thing. We'll talk about this one right here a little bit. The buildings and grounds. So in finance committee, a lot of things kind of goes into buildings and grounds. But we talked about how the gym floor is going to need a full refinish. And we're planning on that next summer. So I'm estimating $40,000 for that, hoping that's enough. That also includes like doing something with the maintenance pickup that we have, that type of thing. Those were in that line item. And then we received our bill from Allen Cap last week, which gets paid for in September. And our insurance had gone up from like 133 something thousand last year to 180 some thousand. So it was about a $44,000 increase in insurance. And a lot of that is in our liabilities on our buildings and properties and errors and emissions and things like that. So a few of these line items here, you will see like the Board of Education. Some of that was a reflection of the errors and emissions and this as well. But so this overall increased from the last time we looked at it in finance committee by that amount that we had, that alley cap amount that went up. However, I reduced it in another area, so our bottom line here is still the last number that we talked about in finance committee. So if we look at this year's proposed line item increases compared to what we budgeted for everything last year, it's about a $500,000 increase, but we had quite a bit in salaries this year. And the other thing to look at when we're coming to this too is, we didn't quite know what that general fund, we had a pretty good idea what that general fund authority was, but until we put our exclusions into the LC2 and I knew exactly what budget authority we had, there was still a little bit of play in there. So some of that went into that buildings and grounds line item 2 that I had been reducing over the years to kind of minimize the impact to the levy. So I put just a little bit more back into there, about $60,000 more back into there, because we had plenty of room. You'll see when we get to the next page, if that makes sense. So before we go on, in finance committee, we've looked at this. Finance committee might have additional comments and might have further questions as well as the people that are not on the finance committee.
What's the bus barn? Sorry, I feel like we talked about that in the
The transportation building.
just the
Yeah.
building itself.
And that's all the buses, like, so that would be, so some insurance increases
Okay.
on, and then, because that's where our insurance for our buses lies, and that's where all those properties and things are too.
So what's architect and engineer?
Architect and engineer is a line item that we have had in there since we started working on that building project. Actually, we had it more for a while, and then we kind of bumped it back down when we were done with the building project.
Okay.
Because it had to be budgeted for outside of the project before they did it, because they hired DLR. So for a while, that was like $25,000 when they were in like the research phase and things like that. Now it's in there in case you do a project, something like refinishing the track or something like that, where you have to pay an engineer to come and make sure that they're doing everything right. So you just can hang on to a little bit of that in there.
Okay.
It doesn't get spent every year if you don't do a project that requires an engineer to come out and look at it, but it's.
So if you don't spend it, it doesn't matter?
It kind of turns into carryover, yeah.
Okay. It turns into, okay.
It kind of, yeah, if you budget for it and you don't spend it, it doesn't carry over in that specific line item, but it carries over as like $5,000 that you didn't spend. That reduces your property tax requirements. the next year.
Okay, okay,
The more you carry over, the less property tax requirement you have.
okay.
Of course, our biggest line item is the top one, which is instruction, which is teacher salaries and benefits. It's nearly
That's about.
over half of our budget.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just, and then there's more personnel costs.
yeah, embedded throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that regular instruction, that line item there contains about 90% of our salary costs.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, maybe a little bit less than that. Yeah, a little bit less than that. Of our certificated teaching staff salary costs.
Yeah.
I should say. Most of our paras and then 7 teachers are in the special education costs. And then, of course, the principals and superintendents, those are in their specific line items.
What's the summer/flex?
Summer school used to be paid for with flex funding, which was a reimbursement. And I just did not change that description in there, so that is our summer school cost.
Okay.
We reduced that, the previous year because some of it was paid for with flex funding. But then last year we were advised to code half of our interventionists, like our reading and our math interventionists in elementary, to flex funding instead. So you will see a bit of a reduction in, that was in regular instruction. We took some of them out and put them back into this. Yes, it
Okay.
just got a little confusing. There's a lot of different things, yes. So
Okay.
it's not summer school anymore, that's flex funding, but it's paying for like half of 2 teachers.
Okay, so like that's
Whereas
a big
before,
jump.
whereas before it was less than that.
Okay.
So every year the state asks us to recode some of these, right? That's very common, yeah.
Yeah, they change codes, they remove codes. A lot of times that happens because you're looking at these codes here, right? So if I look at regular instruction though, that's an 1100. Underneath that, there's codes for supplies and there's codes for purchase services and there's codes. So a lot of times those little codes inside of that big code are the ones that change. These haven't necessarily, the most recent one that's changed is IDEA at the bottom, where it says 6402 to 6415. Those codes now, they've ranged anywhere from all of those in between, but right now it's just 6406, 6408, and 6412 that we're primarily concerned with. The other ones don't exist anymore, so.
I guess my question is more on getting at, so these dollars that we spend one year may go into this category, but at the direction of the state.
Yeah.
We say, well, we're gonna move them down here.
Yep.
So it throws your year-to-year
Yeah.
comparisons off
Yeah.
a little more.
It's like on the gym floor,
Yeah,
how much will we recoup from advertising on it? Can we get all of it?
there's potential you can get all of it, but sometimes we do package deals with them where they pay over a period of years instead of all at once. So there is potential, depending on ad space that's sold and how much we determine that ad space should be worth. That if like 4 or 6 people purchase ad space on the floor and they pay it all up front, that it could potentially take care of that gym floor. But I think in the past, they've been given the opportunity to pay for it in like $2,000 increments over 4
Sure.
years to
Yeah.
pay for it or whatever it was. And so then you have the cost all up front, but it trickles back to you later.
So that's why it's budgeted in that line, is
Yeah.
what we're saying, yeah.
What's transfers doing?
Transfers is money that we would move, like that has been $10,000 that we've moved to activities fund. And that's a good one to point out. Really, that's the only transfer that we budget for. Some schools budget to move money out of their general fund into hot lunch every year. Our hot lunch program does well though, so we never need to do that. So there's just certain items that you can budget for to do that. So that for us is activities. Was it finance committee or was it just you and I, Matt, where we started talking about, I think the full finance committee
We're in
talked
the
about
finance
it.
committee.
Yeah, where our costs have gone up quite a bit in athletics and we have not increased, or activities, we have not increased that transfer from the general fund since really anybody
Yeah.
could remember. However, now coming out of activities, we have like subscriptions to Strive and to Huddle and to all of the things that like go with our broadcasting and things like that. And we have the swimming co-op and some costs come out of that. So every time you add something like that, we've been taking it out of activities and out of athletics, but we've never increased that transfer. So that kind of was a little bit of troubleshooting as to why does that one line item in the activities fund always end up so far in the hole? Well, it's because we keep adding things to it, but we never transfer anything to cover it. And we haven't increased the cost of people to attend games and things like that up until last year. And that was just because the conference had us do that. So.
Yeah, Brian, if you're interested, I mean, Chase and Cassie and I talked quite a bit about, Jason and Chase.
So I'm like, I wasn't in the meeting, did I miss one?
Quite a bit about what to do with that athletic line. It's been $10,000 since I got on the board 11 years ago. And that account struggles every year to get out of the water. And when you go through, like Dawn says, you've got Huddle subscriptions on there, you're paying your refs more, you're doing all these things. It just costs more to do what we do. $15,000 in the budget. I know I don't want to put words in Chase's mouth, but my opinion is that the experience that kids get out on the basketball court or the football field or the wrestling mat or whatever are pretty big part of what we provide them up here. I think we want to continue to fund and support all that.
Okay, we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we had some laws that changed that are going to impact what you're going to see in the coming slides. So first of all, we have an increase, well, an addition, which we did not have before, of foundation aid, which is $1,500 per student. So they reduce the amount that you get for option students by $1,500, so you only get it once per student. So option students are going to be worth like $8,500 this year instead of $10,000, but you still get $1,500 for every student that's in desks in your school, and that was based on last year's October snapshot. So for us, that was an increase of more than $850,000 of state aid. Special education reimbursement is increasing from about 42%, which was pretty low last year, to 80%. That will be kind of trickling in through the year, and I'm not exactly sure how that is. They say that we can count on seeing it right away, but so I estimated that.
Does that number swing a lot every year, that
It's-
percentage of?
It's been between 40 and 50%. It's never, since I've been a superintendent, so this is year 9, and it hasn't been over 50. It's been like 48, 49 at the highest. So the intent was it's supposed to be 100%, but getting up to 80 is something the legislature has been trying to do for a number of years. So that it came with the package that the governor supported was nice. So that'll come trickling in as a receipt. So those top 2 items are receipts. A new thing is a tax authority cap. And I call it a soft cap because that's what everybody's calling it. But so for us, for everybody, it's 3%. And then as we get further into this, there is a process, or we have ability to exceed that by up to an additional 6% if we needed to. So, but 3% is the base. So they won't allow you to increase your property taxes. It's not even that, because there's a lot. Anyway, so they give you your dollar amount. What they did this year is they started where we were at last year, and they reduced it by the amount stated that we're giving, and then said that you can still increase this much. So it's not gonna look like 3% on paper this year, but that's the intent going forward, is that it's 3%. It's just that all of the new receipts coming in kind of mess that up this year. So anyway, we're saying it's a 3% cap, but there's an ability that we would have to exceed it if we needed to. And we've always had a general fund growth limitation, so that's not different from previous years. And then some changes to the postcard hearing. The date moved up on that to give schools more time to adjust their budgets or their levies after the postcard hearing or the joint agency hearings were held if they needed to. Again, you must attend those if your tax request is 2% higher plus the real growth numbers that they send to you. I'm pretty confident that I'm very certain that Arlington will not be required to attend that this year. Like, the only thing hinging on that is me getting all of our valuations in, and then they break it down the way and I put it in. But I don't see in my crystal ball any future this year in which Arlington will be attending, and you'll see why. So those are some changes that happened because of state laws. I threw these up here. You don't necessarily need to see these because this is the page that we submitted on, but I wanted you to see the different features. So we've always had this up here. We upload our budgets, then they take out our special grant funds, which is like IDEA in the different funds to maximize your authority, and you get your retirement increase exclusion. So it comes, it wraps into like all is what your budget authority is. So I've got our unused budget authority at 0. I've also got our unused property tax authority at 0 in this budget. These right here, these weren't on this before. So it's calculating things as we go here. So it's kind of a check and balance for you. So our total unused budget authority is 0. This one, I don't know if I have to populate something. Everything else is populating. So all of these things are zeroed out, which has been a goal to maximize our general fund authority in our stated board goals and to avoid levy swings. It's going to be a levy swing this year, just so you know. I do not have our certified valuation in here yet. That doesn't impact anything that's on here, but I just don't have our certified valuation in there, so I did not put that in as an example because I wasn't comfortable doing that. Because I have a pretty good guess, but it's gonna change because I don't have
We'll know
Douglas or
Friday and
Dodge
Monday.
yet. Yeah, we will. We'll talk again soon. And then here is our, did 70% of the board vote to exceed the certified property tax? We'll talk about that later. So there's a button for me to check on there. Did you have an election? There's a button to check there. We've always had that one. And then if you do one of those things, how much more are you going to exceed by? So those are fields that did not exist on here. Just like, I didn't want to give you too much, but I wanted you to see what I was seeing and see the changes
Yeah.
that had happened to that. But so you know that there's limitations. There's always been on this general fund authority limitation. There has not been a property tax limitation anymore other than under $1.05. So that's a new thing for us that we're dealing with. Now, this is projected only. This number right here is our valuation, assessed valuation for this year. It does not include any growth estimates that I received from Douglas or Dodge County. This is only adding in the increase, the estimated increase from Washington County for in that. So I anticipate that Douglas and Dodge are going to go up a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be enough to change this. And I could get the Washington County one in, I got it a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's changed in the past 3 weeks too, so this could be inaccurate. So this is what I'm basing our figures on, is estimated valuations that I received from Washington County, which would bump, typically we look at a 3-4% valuation increase, okay? So that compounded, so a 12% increase estimate compounded with the known figures of the additional foundation aid and the increased fed reimbursement and things like that. That's where I'm coming up with this number right here. So what we're asking for total on this projected budget with everything as it is, without any adjustments to any work I've done so far, is at about a 7.7 million tax asking. We asked for almost 8.1 last year. So our tax asking is down. Our levy last year was at $1, just say $1.05, because it was $1.49907. It was right where we could be without exceeding that, right? This year, if we were asking for this same dollar amount, and we'll go over again all of this next month with permanent numbers, but if we were asking for the same amount, but with this year's levy, we would have only had to ask for 93 cents. And this year, since we're asking for less right now, that levy is looking like it could be as low as 89 cents. So that's with the general fund where I have everything worked out right now. That's with our payment and all the fees that go with our payment in the bond fund. That was with a little bit of something here in the special building fund to just make sure at the end of the fiscal year, we can pay off the remaining full balance to the leasing corporation and be done with that
For a new addition.
for the new
Yeah.
addition. So that would be paying that off 3 years early. Well, by the end of the fiscal
2
year,
years.
making sure it'd be 2 years early and that would save the taxpayers, and I think I worked it out to like between $14,000 and $20,000 in interest on that. And then in QC Puff, again, that is the HVAC bond that we did back in 2017 just for the payment and interest and fees in there. So this is an overall change in tax rate of a decrease of 15%. Change in operating budget total of 4%, but we just have to ask for a lot less to do that this year. I'm gonna go to the next page and just explain a few things. That's all right, it's a lot to take in. So special building funds pays the leasing corporation with it, just a small levy, like I just said. We put in that this year, we can more than likely pay the remaining amount owed to the leasing corporation at the end of the fiscal year when we're done collecting taxes. QC Puff should be our last year of levy. I mean, we might ask for like just a little bit to make sure it wouldn't run short. Sometimes your taxes don't all come in, or sometimes you're just like, $40,000 short, like if they don't get collected. So I might ask for like a tiny bit next year if I feel like we need to, but I don't anticipate needing to do that. So this should be the last year, because we should have enough in reserves at the end of this year in QC Pub to pay off the final payment. So you won't see that in the 24-25 budget. And then the bond is going to continue to require a similar levy. Well, maybe not a similar levy, but a similar amount that we're asking for to make our payments until that's done.
The payments on that, on our bond, if I remember right, they're increasing as we get towards maturity.
Yep, they
Okay.
increase and then they stabilize and then they come down just a little bit and then you have kind of a big one at the very end too. But yeah, that's kind of how it's set up. So.
Right.
But as those payments get bigger, you're paying more towards the principal.
Sure.
Is going to. So.
Well, and with the QC Puff Fund, hopefully we won't need to levy anything into that next year.
Right.
And really, special building, making that there as well, or a heck of a lot less.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing to keep in mind, and that is, it's a new thing that we really have to think about. In the past years, we've been looking at your special building fund and your general fund can exceed $1.05, right?
That
You're
was the-
limited, that was the rule. You were limited in your general fund, how much you could grow that.
Mhm.
And there's like, you can have up to 35% in your necessary cash reserve. I mean, and that counts into that and everything like that. But your special building fund and your general fund combined, we're fine as long as you weren't going over 14 cents in the special building fund and those two combined weren't over $1.05.
Mhm.
Okay, so now those two combined, it doesn't matter where your levy is at, and it doesn't matter how many cents you're putting in there. You can't go over that 3% soft cap in those two funds combined. So that's a big change. Because
So
that
the cap is the tax asking, right?
the cap, yeah, the tax authority
Mm-hmm.
is asking that 3%. You can exceed it if 5 out of the 6 members of the board would vote to exceed it if you needed to.
And you think that $1,500 per kid, is that gonna be like, here,
Well,
or is that gonna change?
You just asked the $1 million question.
that was
Yeah.
great.
Literally, the $880,000 question.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The optimist in me wants to say, yeah, they made a law. It's gonna be $1,500 a year.
So next year, then it's.
Until, yeah,
$1,000.
until the pot of money that they're pulling it from starts getting a little low and they're like, oh, shoot, maybe
Yeah.
that should be 1,200, maybe that should be 900. And so they're already like, talking about, what is it called? Not leveraging adjustments, but adjustments to like, there's schools right now that aren't benefiting much from that. Arlington is benefiting nicely from that. Some are benefiting more from that we're not getting state aid at all, but have like high student populations. But there's some that we're getting lots of state aid
We don't benefit at all.
that really don't benefit at all. They've held them harmless this year with this new passage. So they're saying, we're not gonna take anything away,
Can't go back.
but you're not gonna, yeah. So they're not gonna let anyone go backwards on their state aid this year due to those things happening. I mean, so they're already starting to kind of mumble about what
Yeah.
adjustments might need to be made.
You know, one of our stated goals in the finance committee is to avoid large levy swings. It's a lot easier to do when it's going down 15 cents.
I was gonna say, I don't think we'll get the argument of.
But you know as well as I do,
Too
Matt,
much. too
when
fast.
when it goes back up, you know what happens. And that's the biggest, that's my biggest fear. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can take it away. Yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
But the biggest thing is,
Oh, I know.
you know what happens. You know, we've been there, we've
Yeah.
seen it, you know, so,
Yep.
I mean, that's where it gets tough, you know.
And so the thing this year, Brian, you're right, 100%, but like for us this year, there is no avoiding this big levy swing.
Oh, no, I
mean,
agree, and that's the
and
biggest
it's
thing, there is no,
good.
the cards that were dealt, we can't do
Good.
anything with it.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and we are asking for almost $400,000 less than last year
Mhm.
with all of these things, because if you take the state aid that they gave you, but then your budget growth, and you kind of equal each other out. And yeah, so we're asking for less. So that's why, in my estimation, there is, if if I'm asking for less money, there's absolutely no way we're going to be participating in that joint agency meeting.
Right.
There's nothing I don't think that could happen to our valuations that changes that picture this
Yeah, it
year.
may improve a
With the
little bit.
estimate
It's
that we
just,
have, yeah. So it's a
But at
big
the
swing.
end, and we take
And that
on
was-
what the school needs.
Yeah, we are. I
Yeah.
mean, we're not asking for,
No,
for
right.
anything
No.
more. We've never had a budget that asks for anything more. Even if you go and like look at our bond in QC Pro, we're levying only for the payment and
Mhm.
for, you know, we're not levying something into reserves. There, our reserves kind of are handling the payment. And in the future, we might look at that and say, okay, next year's payment is gonna be a little higher, so we're gonna levy a little bit more to make sure that we have the coming year's payment in reserves for that. But, I mean, we're asking for what we need on those things.
So when you talk about the QC puff, like possibly having, like not having to levy for that payment because we have stuff in reserves,
Yes.
how do we end up with money in reserves? Like, where does that come from?
It's been gradually happening since the QC bond.
Okay, so like that's
so-
gaining interest or like, where,
Yeah,
I just don't get where the
I mean,
money's coming from. How do
it
we-
is.
so,
So you
yeah,
start by levying for a little bit more than you need. Like you're a little bit aggressive in your levies the first year because it takes a while for taxes to come in and you want
Yeah.
to make sure that you have enough for your payment by the time the payment comes.
Yep,
You
okay.
do.
Yep.
So like if your payment is $300,000, but it comes due in June, and we know we get a huge chunk of our taxes in August,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to maybe ask for $500,000 that year to make sure you have 300,000 by the time that comes due.
So you
So
can make
you
a
do
payment.
that, so
Okay.
you do that for a couple of years, and then you end up with this in reserves, which we have right now, which is enough to make that last payment
mm-hmm,
without having to ask for more next year. And
okay,
then once, in the way I budget, once you get to that, where you have the next year's payment, because you can
Mhm.
look ahead and see what's coming
yeah,
in reserves, then you don't really need to ask for more reserves. in
Yeah.
there. You just kind of hold them there
Okay.
until you need it, so.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yep, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and the last thing that I threw in there to talk about is this 6%. So Arlington would be allowed to exceed the 3% tax base limitation for up to an additional 6% if necessary. In my opinion, and I think the finance committee would agree, that is not necessary this year.
agreed.
This would require, in order to do that, you would put a separate motion from your budget. You don't do it as part of the budget process. You put a separate motion on your board agenda to exceed that with either, and you have to have either a 5-1 or a 6-0 vote. Like a 4-2 vote on that doesn't cut it. It's gotta be 70%.
Supermajority.
Yep, a supermajority on that. The reason that I put this on here for everyone on this board to talk about is because of what I said before. Right now, it's your general fund and your special building fund can't exceed that 3%, right? So if in the future, we want to do something like, hey, we see that we've got a project coming, we want to plan for doing that 3 years down the road. So we want to levy in the special building fund $300,000 a year for the next 3 years. So we have 900,000 and we can do that project. If I don't have the ability to get, like, to combine that with my general fund tax asking and not exceed 3%, then you can't do, like, then we can't save for the future and like save like a really expensive bond or something like that, right? You can levy for the money now, if you will, and let it build some interest rather than spending it on interest. You could let it build interest, and that 900,000 might be $940,000 by the time you get to use it, if that makes any sense.
And here's the crazy part, the reason why we really have to have this conversation now is because according to people that have interpreted the way this law is written, our attorneys, et cetera, one would think, like logically, that 2 years from now, if you were in a situation where you needed to exceed that 3%, that board would then at that time vote to do so. They're interpreting this law, and the advice we're given says that the law is not written that way. The law is written so that if you want to do that at some point in the future, you have to do it in this budget year.
Vote for it now.
Vote for it now,
You
even though
can.
you may never need to use it. But
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah,
possibility.
I know,
That's a possibility. We might still have the ability to vote to exceed next year or the year after that. but
So you're
I'm already
saying
talking
if
about
we don't,
taking it away.
if we don't bring this up and vote for it, we're out.
Well, or we might be out. We might be out.
We don't know.
Maybe.
This is the dumbest thing.
the way it's
I've ever
That
interpreted,
is, that is stupid.
I know, and the way it's interpreted right now, you're correct. Yeah, yep, it wasn't written with a lot of clarity.
It would be
That is
easier if that's an additional 3% instead of 6 to make 9, but
So
it would
the
make
thing
everybody
is,
feel a little better.
well, and you still have everyone, that's the checks and balances, right? Like I can't write a budget and say, yeah, we need 9%. You guys are just going, oh, okay, we need 9%. You know what I mean? Like that's, we talk about
Yeah.
it and we have conversations in finance committee and we try and make smart financial decisions, you know? Boy, but it would just be, and there might even be a year, because I know other schools are having that year that didn't come out as well as we did. And they're still, like, they're gonna have to ask for it this year already because their general fund alone exceeded 3%. And we've had years like that too, where our general fund alone has exceeded
I know.
3%. So
But it's-
it's,
It's hard to,
we're trying to
Be
foresee
a
like
fiscal
all of the
conservative
possible scenarios and not just
Yeah.
react this year
activate this
to this
trigger,
budget.
you know?
So,
Hey, we're responsible with everybody's money, but just in case, you know, that's kind of the corner they may have us all into. I don't know, Brian.
The things I worry about with that is what we can and can't control. Entities we have no control over, county assessor, we don't know. Obviously, looking up, what if they go down?
Yeah.
then you could easily,
get-
yeah.
I can't foresee a world right now where the assessments go down based upon everybody.
No.
But, or the state of Nebraska decides, you know, that $1,500 foundation, we just, that's not gonna
Can't
work.
afford it anymore.
So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that concerns me, of why
Yeah,
we need to consider it.
too many pieces of our budget are, none of our budget, but of the tax asking mechanism are not in our control. The budget's within our control.
So it's not,
It's a
we're not,
conversation
it's
for
the
tonight. is what it
conversation for
is.
tonight.
Yeah.
It's not an action item on the board meeting or anything like that for tonight. But we just need to start having that talk.
Mhm. And then we may get more clarification on it between now and next month also.
Yeah, you never know. They might write us a letter that says, we're not gonna take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You'll get to vote on that next year if you need to. Maybe.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm the government, I'm here to help, you know?
Yeah. We know how that works. Chase, we know how that works. I mean, it just, it don't even make sense. I mean, in a normal business, the way businesses are run today, you know it, Matt.
I know.
Am I wrong?
Come on,
You're not wrong.
Brian, the school is not a normal business.
I know, but gee, money
We tried.
Christmas.
Yeah.
When you're trying to, you know,
I know.
in your own business, trying to make things work,
Mm-hmm. Keep things tightened up. Yeah.
and then this.
Well, you know, the difference is when you're running your own business, you're the king of the kingdom. And we have to abide by others' guidelines, rules, and actions. And that's, it's hard for me to get my head around too for a long time. So, but, we're gonna be bumping up on 7 o'clock, so, questions for Dr. Lewis, regarding what we saw tonight, other than this bit of lunacy.
No, I'm good.
Dr. Lewis, going off of Cass's comments on reserves, what, I know we talked a lot about reserves over the past year.
Mhm.
Where are we at, for the new budget, where our reserve dollars will be? What will those look like approximately?
A little bit more than 4 months of expenses. Is where it will be
Do you know the
at.
dollar amount roughly?
It's like, I think it's combined with depreciation, so I think those two combined are about 2.6.
Okay.
2.6 million, and our expenses run between 7 and 800,000.
Got it.
And so it's just under 4.
Cassie?
No,
No
not yet.
questions, okay.
Well, I had thoughts, but I probably should do
All right. Okay, so let's adjourn the workshop at 6:55. Got about 5 minutes and
Yeah.
we'll jump into returns drive off.
I'm gonna see if I can do that.
Okay.
Without interrupting that. I'm afraid if I pause it, I won't be able to start it again.
Maybe mute the mic at least.
Okay.
Okay, welcome to the August edition of the Arlington Board of Education's regular meeting. Tonight's meeting is being held in compliance with the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy is posted right there on the side of the room. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:01 and take roll, please. Okay.
I'm sorry. I do this one always. All right, Jason Arp,
Here.
Cassie Foster,
Here.
Chase Gradville,
Here.
Ryan Locker,
Here.
Matt O'Daniel,
Here.
Shannon Holmberg.
We had the same yes, so I was confused with everything.
Okay, I'll make a quick, Shannon sent us a text earlier this morning. She had a work conflict come up, so I'll make a motion to excuse Board Member Wilmot's absence this evening.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Hang on, my computer just froze up. All right. Right. Jeez. Okay. Cassie Foster,
Yes.
Chase Gradville,
Yes.
Ryan Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Arp.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thanks, everyone. And let's say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of our meeting's agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda?
Make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Chase and Brian, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Let's vote, please.
Sorry, this is not wanting to cooperate here this evening.
Okay. No worry.
Are we recording?
No,
Okay.
there we go. All right, I'm sorry.
We're good.
Chase made the
Chase, you
motion
did,
and
got it.
Brian seconded the motion.
Got it. All right, sorry, guys.
It's all right.
Chase Gradville,
Yes.
Ryan Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Arp.
Yep.
Cassie Foster.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Item 2 on the agenda is welcome to our guests tonight. If there's anybody with us that wishes to speak, this is the appropriate time, and there's a sign-in sheet right there too. If you have anything, we do ask that you sign in. So. Everybody's, no?
Came to the
Okay, good. All right.
Okay. Thanks for coming. So fun.
So the third item on the agenda, of course, is the consent agenda. We have financial reports, prior minutes, and a couple hires. Dr. Lewis, is there anything you want to?
And then you have the listing from the Visa bill. So the Visa bill is on your finance, but the printout wasn't there. So that is out there for you. So yes, we have a new elementary para, Brittany Fost. Started with our new teachers the other day, so we need to approve her hire. There was not anything overly unusual on this. You will notice if you're looking at like our percentage sheets, the tax request in there, it says we're at 87%. A big chunk of those property taxes, recall, is going to come in September, the second half. So we usually get a nice chunk in May and then a nice chunk in September. So that 87%. Well, it'll be reflected in the new fiscal year. So right away, we'll start off with nice bonus there in the fiscal year. And we have one more month of expenses to come out of this. So if we're looking at percentage wise, where we're at in total budget, where our finances came in a little bit over, our receipts did, and our budget came in under a little bit, but we still have another whole month of expenses to roll into that because that was the end of the month in July. So we still have to reflect the end of the month in August, but we're doing pretty good. You know, we talked about the balance in athletics there a lot during our,
Not get that transfer made yet, so
that's okay.
that will be.
As long as that's done before the end of the fiscal year, you approved the $10,000 transfer that we budgeted for last month. She just didn't write the check yet. We'll do that before the fiscal year is out, and that will go in athletics and wipe that out a little bit. But you can see that's kind of that account that we struggle in. And we talked about that during our budget workshop, and we're going to increase that because so many more expenses come out of that than we ever have. So we'll increase that transfer if the budget passes, as we looked at it in the budget workshop. So that's where activities are at. Bank balances are healthy right now. Looks like we're gonna carry over a little bit more at the end of this fiscal year than we did last year, so that's a good position to be in. So. Any questions about any specific bills or anything?
Dr. Lewis, I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Where is it? Respondus Inc.
Remind me what Respond, oh, that is, that's the lockdown browser for our students. So when they're
Got it.
taking a test, they can't leave the test and go look at the answer on a different website. It locks them into that test.
Got it. And what do we use? Just because I could see this in a couple different areas on
Sure.
distance learning subscription.
For Odyssey, where, can you tell me specifically?
United Private Networks.
I'm gonna make mine bigger so I can read
That
it.
is, that one is a, it is a monthly bill.
Oh, there, yeah,
It is for the, sorry,
that just might not be the
Looking
right
along.
description. The UPN, so it's more about, it's not every month though that we get that UPN, is it? Thanks for bringing it up, Chase. 100%, I can't
Sorry.
tell you what's there to you right at this moment, but UPN is a Dan question always when I say, oh, what is this one? It's something to do with our networks.
Got it.
Which is,
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
We're good.
we get, typically the bill is $500 a month. We get reimbursed from, I believe there's a federal grant that gives us part of,
Oh,
the
E-rate.
total bill is like $1,200, but then they provide part of the funding, so it's like 500. At the very beginning of the year, there is a renewal chunk, and so that's why it's 1,300 this month. But typically, it's only about 500.
I think E-rate helps with that. They give us a discount.
Yes.
Rate with E-rate.
And the only other question I had was because we were talking about recently with the CD and interest rates and stuff. Where does the interest show up on when I'm looking at it?
On our receipts, like on our sheet there.
Yeah, does it or is it built into something?
Right now that is in all other.
Got it.
So it's not property taxes or all those other ones, it's just in all other.
Got it.
But the receipt that's in, or the interest that's, in the depreciation CD, right there, that will drop in quarterly, so you will see that actually increase the balance of that. We drop it right back into that, or do we drop it into the special funds?
And again, just, Mr. Larson just texted me, UPN is the internet provider.
Thank you.
Got it.
That's what you asked me.
Very quick response.
Well,
Thank
he's
you.
watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
We appreciate that, yes. Dr. Lewis appreciates it.
I need my people around me. I'll tell you what. But yeah, so it will, and actually I looked today on that too, but so right now I can see the interest that's building up on that CD and then it drops in quarterly. So right now, like in the wisdom of that, right? We did that, that was July 20th that we figured out what that rate was. So that's been 3 weeks. It's earned $700 in that 3 weeks based on the 0.13% that we had before that 5% we're earning significantly more.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to watch that.
And then the general fund interest, is that built in automatically?
That is, that's in all the federal, all other too, but yeah, it just drops in. All of those, like the special funds checking account has that higher interest rate, it's like 3 point something right now.
Which one are you looking at, Chase? Are you looking at the one that's up there behind right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at the percentage.
That's what I was trying to find all other. I'm like,
Yes,
what-
so the
Yeah,
interest just accrues.
I was
through
looking at the wrong
the
sheet,
bank.
I'm sorry.
So yes,
So
all the
it's-
general fund is just the
it's
general
in-
fund.
Okay.
Yes, the other interest that's down below is broken out compared to by the amount of special buildings fund. And then there's a percentage. So
He's pretty-
so if you just scroll down a little bit,
I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
down
Jen.
there, that the interest on those particular accounts is the total of the special funds with a percentage broken out of the interest that's actually, so the special funds are all, this is so difficult to explain. The special funds is all one
One
bank
checking
account.
account.
And so that total amount of the interest is what the bank shows me. And then each of those, what goes in each of those funds is a percentage of that interest total.
Okay, based upon how
Based
much
upon-
of that fund
Yes,
Is,
is
yeah.
made up
part
by,
of that
yeah.
balance.
Got it.
Does that make, okay.
Yep, it does.
And I'm sorry, I was looking at a different sheet in front of me, and I thought you were wondering where did you get receipted in? That was silly.
And so the interest for that CD right there was what the very last one was that we had gotten, so it's gonna be a lot more
Gotcha.
now that we've rolled it over.
Awesome.
Everybody good? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Chase. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Dark,
Yes.
Cassie Fussner,
Yes.
Chase Kratman.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. That brings us into the favorite part of our meeting, the principal's reports. Mrs. Morgan, Dr. Morgan.
Yeah.
We gotta change that.
We gotta change that on the agenda.
Next
Yeah,
time.
not
Take me a
that.
while, sorry.
Takes me a while too. I'm like, hey, Mrs. Morgan, Dr. Morgan, missed you. I'm good. Okay, we had a busy summer in the elementary. We had 77 kiddos coming in for reading, math, science, technology. I did some Spanish and foods classes. We kind of run two programs simultaneously. We have that STEAM camp, and then we have some kids that need a little extra support, and they come minimally one to two times a week. I'm sorry, for 2 hours a week total throughout the whole summer. So through June and July, we've seen some great success with that in post-COVID years. So that's that program running there. We also had then some special education students, 12 of them. They came K-12, receiving some extended school year programming, and that is in there due to their IEPs, and that's up from a few years back, but good stuff there for them as well. MTSS training, we had several staff members on the elementary side go to some trainings this summer. ELA, which is English Language Arts, MTSS process, which is a multi-tiered systems of support. It's how we look at students where they are and how we get students help and assistance in those areas. So we had an English Language Arts team that worked throughout the year, and their last meeting was this summer, and then a mental health group that went that was K-12 as well. And then a big thank you to the PTO. They're finishing up the paintings in the elementary library. I think they're hitting up the concession stand too, and gonna pretty that up a little bit, so. So if you have a chance, walk through the library. Up on the elementary side is where the painting is. I'm directionally challenged. I'm going I'm going south wall on the elementary side. There's a big open wall there. That's the
That
side
feels
with the
like
big
right.
windows,
Yeah.
but the elementary side with no windows. So go up there and check it out. It's pretty cool. I think I got it. There we go.
I don't know what to ask you about that. It's pretty complete.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah,
sunshine and
even in the
rainbows.
summertime? Yeah.
Even in the summertime.
Okay.
It's a good place to be.
Any other questions for Mrs. Morgan before we move on to Mr. Pinkston?
Okay,
Sir?
all right. Just wanted to capture our curriculum cycle. Math department's in a pilot year, so if you hear some different things regarding math curriculum, and that'll be a budget item that, as you're meeting, that'll be well worth it, but it'll be a hit. They are piloting a couple different curriculum from a couple different choices, so that'll roll around February-ish for everybody to select. Our business, industrial tech, so I'm forgetting right there. And ag are in their first year of what was approved last year, and then the team that is just starting it is the social sciences team. But the main one that you'll hear about this year is math. Okay. This is the annual reminder I leave on here for our committee. on American civics to meet. We're continuing on with our Metro connections. Our dual enrollment navigator will be here on Fridays. Checking up on our students who are doing our Kickstart classes, connecting us with different offerings that Metro has. We've got a little bit different of a connection than this, but kind of leads me to, we've got over 40 students who are doing our school to work program. So that's the most we've had doing that. So a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to meet students' needs, especially as they get older here. Wanted you to hear the names of new teachers. I know you've approved contracts and all that kind of stuff, but as you're around, or you may see somebody you don't know, different things that way. So Mrs. Tolaco is ELA, Mr. Schleter is ELA, Mr. Daigle's industrial tech, and Mr. Polk is physical education. So something, I guess, after seeing Jackie's report always inspires me to do greater. Is we had a couple students who finished up some summer school classes. Just without identifying a student, we had a student make up 1.5 years worth of work this summer. That's the most we've had. Made up a full class plus a semester. So phenomenal job. And it's all on the student, but it's because of some of the things that you approved regarding digital curriculum and different things that way. So appreciate that.
How many kids do you get?
It depends. This year we had 4. We've had up to, I think we had to get 6 new licenses for the summer last year, which would have been 11 kids last year. So it kind of varies.
Does it hold somewhere in that 10 number, dozen number?
We're probably usually closer to 5, 6 more than double digits. Yeah.
More courses than others or not?
It kind of varies. We typically try to stay away from the, if there's a choice in a student in what they may need to make up or recover some credits, the history, those tend to work a little bit better than like a lab science class.
Sure.
Math classes, depending on kind of how a student is doing, if they're progressing, if they're really started really high and kind of fading, we then typically won't put them in a math second semester because they're not capturing the concepts.
Okay.
So, yep. It's kind of very student to student.
Yep.
Any more questions, Mr. Shada, or Mr. Fingston, sorry?
What a compliment.
And I do have feelings.
Scroll down.
Well, if you're gonna, thank you also for putting on the barbecue.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to meet all the new teachers and see everybody, but
Yeah,
the new
it's a nice
teachers, you
way
know.
just to, for you to say that you appreciate our staff, and we certainly appreciate that. So.
Of course.
Yep.
Mr. Shada,
All right, a couple things I always remind you guys to start the year. We are continuing, this is forefront in all activities right now in terms of concussion, heat awareness and prevention and stuff like that. So coaches are doing their certification. The CPR is every other year that you're certified, and we just had a class this morning. So those are big things. We also are, as you guys know, partnering with the hospital. I have a new trainer that's in the building today. Again, Kirsten Niemeyer is her name. So excited to have her and some of those pieces tied together. Her and I will meet with the fire department next Wednesday evening just to kind of go over some safety plans in case we need to go through those. If we were to have an event, we got to work together. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but plan so you don't have to use it, right? So I've been working on those pieces with our staff. It's also great too. We have lots of staff that jump in that maybe aren't a sponsor or a coach that want to be certified and trained just because they want to be ready to help if something were to happen. So impact testing, we talked about that for the better part of a decade. It's now called SWAY, S-W-A-Y, through the
what is that acronym?
That's a good question. SWAY is what the app is. I have to look at the acronym. It's the same idea. Actually, you test with your phone now, or a laptop, or an iPad, and so that's actually made it a little easier to get kids through. And so we have all but just 1 or 2 9 through 12 graders that are all done right now. For that are off the fall sports, and then we'll impact or SWAY test our junior high students this week in a PE class. So it gives us baseline data in case we would have to use it. So that's just kind of something we continue to stay with the times in the hospital. Fall sports, we're excited about kicking off on Friday. The schedule's on our website. We continue to point people there. Dan and Scott worked really hard last year on the website. I think it was great. And so all those schedules are up there for the year. So if you need to, you're looking at what date we're going to go run the track meet, that's out there too. So continue to push that. Scrimmages are Friday, except for cross country on Saturday morning. So softball at 5, volleyball at 6, football at 7. And the golf team is already swinging away on Friday. So we're excited about that. On the highlight, we have a new partner in terms of photography, which is Deo's Photography. Mr. Dwyer's recommended, worked with Mike for a long time. You guys know Mike, and so when he recommends somebody, that seemed like the right fit to go with. And 2 great guys there, and that went really well the other day. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. I think our families will be excited about that different. It just looked a little updated, so that'd be great. National FBLA conference, they went to Atlanta with Dr. Lewis and Mrs. Coger and Dr. Lewis, tag team in that event. Wanted to highlight those. I know that Mrs. Coger sent you guys some things, but they did a great job. Bailey Taylor's Who's Who. And Laura Andreessen placed 7th as a junior high student, 8th grader in business ethics. Dathan Hansen, top 15 in info systems. Josh Emery is our state treasurer. Lisa's son, Kevin, is the state reporter, and a couple other things there. We are the champion chapter, which was pretty neat. There's about 4% nationwide receive this award, and so, we're not shocked, but that's awesome for what they've done. And then that Gold Seal Award, and then 19 competitors at nationals. So, what I also think is great is that not only do they get to go compete, but they do a lot of just getting to see the city and different places they go, and they're not just sitting in a hotel waiting for the next test. They're on the go. All right, Dr. Lewis, about almost every hour of the day.
And we go fast too. Mrs. Koger walks as fast as she walks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of, it's very structured for them, so they get really, they get some great experiences. They're going from the time they get up until they're exhausted at the end of the day. So, and it's filled up with good stuff. Yeah, they have a great time.
It's great.
Yeah.
I think they're in Orlando next year, so,
Yeah. Is it?
I was once, I think it's Orlando. I just gave you a lot of stuff. Questions, guys?
No questions from Ms. Shana? Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. As always. So in our superintendent's report, we have quite a little bit, really.
Yep, we got a few things in there.
You want to walk us through there, Dr. Lewis?
Sure. So our school safety audit, you'll see that it's required by Rule 10 every year that you have an outside resource come through and check everything out for you. Really very good overall. Just a few things, new things, some comments about continuity of operations, like if you lost your building or you couldn't access your building, where would you meet, things like that. So we'll work on a plan like that. Made a lot of progress on doors being locked and things like that. We get a comment that some of our new classrooms have cupboards built in the corner that would be the hard corner, which would be hardest to see. So we'll have to work on maybe some window coverings there for those classroom is what he's got to make sure that the large window by the entry door needs to be covered during lockdown procedures, just because it's hard to get tucked all the way back in the corner because of where we put the cabinets. Couple of comments again on hearing the PA or the intercoms in like gymnasiums or in the shop area, or like when band and choir are happening. So that's a problem in every school, but that was something to continue to work on. Once again, staff IDs we're required to have them. They were asking us to make sure that staff are wearing their IDs all the time. Staff have their IDs, just sometimes they're like attached to your keys and you don't need your keys or whatever. So we need to encourage staff to have their IDs on every day. So maybe we'll talk to Officer Jenkins. She had donuts for doors. So if we pass many door checks, maybe we can do something with IDs. I don't know what you would pass out, that's what. But anyway, that's probably the next thing that we'll work on because we made a lot of progress on the door checks. So I think for next project she'll tackle will be make sure everyone is wearing their IDs. Reunification drill conducted by the district. We actually walked the staff through our reunification during in-service here. So the last thing would be to, put that into full force and do that. But Officer Judkins is coordinating all of that efforts. And we do have one room, and I think it's not actually a room. I think it's a room in between rooms, but it says, these doors are never locked because no one has the key to it. So I'm not sure quite what room it is, guys. But anyway, that popped up. So just a few things to work on. Overall, it's a really good report. So I don't know. It could potentially be the maintenance office inside of the, like it used to be the, it could be that. It could be that. But overall, we were pleased with that. Some things that we can continue to work on, but it was a good report. We made some improvements from last year. Do you have any questions on that?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to the enrollment report. So if we pop that up, where we started last year. So there's 3 columns here. The yellow is where we're at today. The blue is where we ended in June, and the one closest to that is pretty close to where we started. The beginning of the year last year, or at the October snapshot. So our October snapshot last year was 691 students. By the end of the school year, we had 704 students. And as of the time I put this enrollment report together, at the end of the day, Friday, we had 722 students enrolled this year. And I know there's a few to enroll yet. So enrollment is up. That's the highest it's been if we look back at the last 15 years. So that's kind of where we were trending before COVID, I would say. And then COVID, we had some switch schools to do online things or homeschool for a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like before COVID, we were trending to hit 715, 720 that year. So I'd say we're even ahead of that, where I anticipated we would be in this time. So I feel like we gained a lot of growth that we were expecting to see. We had that kind of steady 2 to 3% of student growth per year for several years before COVID. So I feel like we're kind of catching up there. But yeah, it's we've got some full classrooms, which is, these are very workable sizes when you've got 3 sections in elementary. Those classrooms have between 16 and 20 kids. Probably all those 3 sections. None of them are overwhelming. None of them are super full, but none of them are small either that you would classify and walk in and say, wow, this class is just tiny or anything like that. And we do have some that are pushing the limits of our high school capacities, in which we would probably not allow options at all anymore. And we haven't been that size in any of our high school classes since I've been here. So that's where we're at. Enrollment, option enrollment, that number is just about the same that it was our net option positive last year, but you can see the amount that we approved went down and the amount that optioned out went down. So we still have a similar ratio there, but the number that have optioned in is lower than it was last year as well. So it's optioned out. And again, we'll give, every couple of months, we'll give another report as that kind of changes as time goes by, so.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in there if you just look at it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments?
And I'll have more accurate on the option too, once we get like those data figures rolled out. So the October snapshot that the NPE takes and all those figures, that gives me the more accurate data because I don't always see which students have optioned out and gone to another district.
Right.
The way so when I can look at that report and really whittle it down, it'll be a little bit more accurate on that too.
Sure.
Okay. And then the NASB monthly agenda item and the NERCSA, I was pointing out again, and the NERCSA, we're getting featured for another month. Jackie decided to leave us on there for another month. on our NERC. So we're still featured in there, so you'll see the cool things about Arlington near the end of that. And then on the NISB monthly board agenda item, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the area membership meeting, I believe, is on September 20th this year. So if anybody wants to attend that, let me know. That's just over in Fremont. We go over to the middle school and have some meetings and things like that. And then I believe they go for a meal. Typically that's like at the country club or something like that.
September 20th.
September.
Okay.
Yep, so let me know if you want to attend that. You need a bottle of water. I need you in.
No, I told you.
Oh, so water won't help.
Okay, before we move on, another opportunity here. Any questions for Dr. Lewis about anything in the superintendent's report? Everybody's good? All right. So, we get down into our committee reports. Finance committee last met, once since our last meeting. Right? Did we?
I think we met once and then we tried to get another one together
Yeah.
when I got those estimated valuations in.
So at any rate, obviously, the results of our meeting, we talked about during the budget hearing. Buildings and grounds has met. Does anybody have a report from buildings and grounds?
Just kind of look around the
Well, yeah.
new stuff in the kitchen and then talked about some things in the old boiler room.
And there's some regulations changing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. For the hot water heaters and the Freon in the AC units. So in a
It's kinda
couple
like
of years.
It's
Yeah.
not like it's gonna be extinct, but it's gonna be more, I guess, pricey to fix the old and new, so.
Because we have to repair them and put different freon in them.
Right.
So we'll just,
Yeah,
I guess,
maybe that
cross
will
that
break.
bridge. There you go.
Best case scenario.
Now it's sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
That's-
Knock on a lot of wood.
I know. It's, if you have anything that's cool with freon right now and it breaks. Maybe. Okay, we have no unfinished business, so we get into new business. Item 8.1 is discuss and consider revision to policy number 5205.
Mhm.
Dr. Lewis, you want to fill us in here, please?
Yeah, I will fill you in here. When I
Thank
was
you.
going through this to add it to our policy manual, I went, oh, shoot, I didn't catch that it also adjusted down the amount of credits that we've been requiring to graduate for many, many years. So the state minimum is 220. We've always required 260 credits to graduate. So rather than amend like that full out policy, I just took the piece that was now required of it and pulled it back into our policy, because they were amending the policy because we needed the statement at the end that said, in addition, every student must complete at least one 5-credit high school course in personal finance and financial literacy. That's why that came out. And so I pulled that statement, put it back into our policy before, which said we need 260 semester hours to graduate. So that's why that's in there. I should have caught it earlier, and my apologies, but since we're just amending the policy, we just need one reading, so we do need a vote.
Okay. Anybody care to make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt amended policy 5205 graduation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Chase and Jason. Is there any more discussion? Questions? No? Let's vote, please.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Arp,
Yes.
Cassie Clausen,
Yes.
Chase Carterville.
Yes.
Brian Lucker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. We have a new graduation policy. That's exciting.
We haven't amended, yes.
Amended.
We have a correct one before the school year starts, so
Yeah.
that's good.
That'll get everybody talking. Item 8.2, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to adopt amended policy 5006, resolution and appendix number 1.
Great, so we did, we did, and again, we did the letter that we're going to need. We talked about the SPED, how they're going to do the option policies there. The piece of it that didn't get added to the board meeting was this, which now says that we have to post our capacities by October 15th, not March 15th. So we need to start talking pretty quickly about capacities for, like, I don't know, 10 months from now, which is really kind of puts us in a, I mean,
Mhm.
if you look at what happened from October to June on our enrollment alone, we went from 691 to 704. We based our capacities on something that was closer to the 704, not 691. So it will be challenging to establish capacities by then, but that's what we're gonna have to do. Anyway,
For Brian and Cassie's benefit, we typically do this in March. Yeah, and we're not moving it up to October because we want to, we're moving it up to October
Because we have
the state had it determined. So,
Yeah.
so essentially, this policy just indicates the date by which we'll set our capacity. So we'll have to start discussing that, and that'll be on the agenda for October.
yeah.
So this is something that's always been done, it's just that we have to
Yeah.
change the policy.
When we
because
do
It
it.
moves up the timeline.
Right.
It moves up our timeline, so yeah. So that is the only thing that's changed too. And again, the second page of this is what we will actually fill in October. You know, we will put what our current, what our program capacity is per grade level and what we project the enrollment to be yearly. So anyway, those numbers aren't on there now because we will amend it.
So do we have another reading on this, or do we take action on it?
We will have another reading on this one because I
Okay.
did not have it on there.
So it'll come back to us next month.
It will come back next month.
All right. 8.3, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the 23-24 coaches and sponsors handbook. We pulled this, if anybody remembers, off of the agenda last month because we wanted to look at some language in here, specifically how the coaches work with outside organizations. Jump in here if I'm wrong, Dr. Lewis.
Nope, that's right.
Dr. Lewis, myself, and Mr. Shada had a meeting with the Boosters Club, and we looked at this language, and you can see it's, what page are we on here?
33,
Okay.
going on to 34. It's highlighted blue text. So, yeah, it was a very short statement that didn't.
Wasn't real clear.
I think it was clear enough to our coaches, but it was a little bit
This
directed
maybe?
at. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
little bit. The Booster Club felt like it was a statement that was telling them how to operate rather than telling our coaches how to operate. So, you know, after our meeting, I felt like we worked through a lot of conversations and decided that we wanted to include some language about, hey, we have a Booster Club. They're incorporated to do these specific things. Coaches, here's what we want you to do if you're going to ask for things, and here's how we're going to handle those requests. This kind of clarifies everything that we talked about in that meeting, and
Yeah.
and we think it's going to increase our ability to communicate with visitors and to be transparent and open in the dealings with the schools that goes back and forth. I think it's going to help everyone in general. So,
Have they seen this language?
yes,
Okay.
yep, I've talked to.
Everybody's good with it.
I've talked to him. Yeah, I've talked to, you know, even up to this afternoon in the hallway, the president of this club, I live with her, and we're all on the same page.
So, Mr. Shader, are there any other significant changes in the handbook? I know we really didn't get into it. I mean, I see some date and some punctuation changes and things in there, but
No, those are, yeah, I think I fixed some clerical errors or something like that, yeah. No, that's the only issue that.
Okay.
So then,
all right. I'll make a motion to adopt the coaches and sponsors handbook for 2023-2024 as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Jason. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Jason Stark,
Yes.
Cassie Klesner,
Yes,
Chase Carnival,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Dane.
Yep. Motion carries. Item 8.4, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to authorize purchase of a 12-passenger van to be determined with price not to exceed $55,000.
okay, here's why we're doing this way.
Yeah.
We used to be able to go shopping for school vehicles that we needed. We could go onto the lot, they could say, we have this, this, and this. Take these to your board, have them look at them, have them vote on which one they want, we'll hold on to it for you. That doesn't happen anymore. So what we found is we go in and we're talking to them, well, we don't really have anything in right now. They're not building those anymore. When we get some in, we have a waiting list. And so probably what we need to do is utilize some resources that we have available to us and try
So-
and get in a different way.
Yeah, so what I suggested and we looked at is, of course, we have access to the Manheim Auto Auction, nationwide sales. And I can go in there and search these vehicles and see where they're at, when they're running. We do a lot of business with them, so we can buy a vehicle through there and have it shipped back to Omaha, okay? And we'll be buying them at wholesale prices versus retail prices. They have, like everything you buy online now, they have condition reports, pictures, videos. And then if the vehicle gets to you and it's been misrepresented, you can return it. There's, we deal with it a lot. So, we can sure do that, and there's a group of them that sells, down in Texas at a Manheim sale down there. There's 5 or 6 of them that would fit what we're looking for, what the office is looking for transportation. These are current model year, they have 14 or 15,000 miles on them, they're 12 passengers. They're, Chevy, what are they, Chevy, what do they call them, express
Chevy
passenger vans?
Express, yeah.
Pretty basic,
They're like the ones we have parked out there, except without.
rust and, yeah.
Yes.
So, to be completely transparent with the board and everybody else, the way this would work is I would have to buy them through my store and then turn around and sell them to, the school district. I'm happy to do that. I'm not looking for any fees or anything in between, just, at our cost, so.
And it seems like it's the only way that we can get
Can't find
one
them.
of these. We can't, and so we have to be able to, normally we wouldn't be able to take the authority to purchase a van without, knowing
Yeah.
exactly what was board action, ahead of time. But the way we have to act in this, we have to act quickly or we're gonna miss out on the deal and somebody else is going to grab them. So that's why we're looking at this motion this way instead.
And if they run through the sale and if they're just great, just like buying anything through the sale, if it's crazy high, we'll wait, So that's what we're gonna try to do.
Mm-hmm.
On that amount for the 55,000, that's like middle of the road. I don't know how much a van costs. So what are we looking like the price wise?
Okay.
The last
Good
time we
question.
purchased one of these, 3 years ago, it was probably in the $30,000 price range.
Okay.
55 is probably higher than we need to go, looking at some of these that Matt has shared with us today, but we don't want to price ourselves out
I
of
think
not.
we'll spend under 50, and the vans that we're looking at are the base, so that's where they're gonna be. When we first kind of started down this rabbit hole, it was, the numbers were in the 80s, and then you start looking at, they have more equipment on them and so on and so
Things we
forth,
didn't need.
things that we didn't need. So I to answer your question, Cass, I think that if you wanted to go older and more miles, you could get one for less, somewhere maybe even in the 30s. But I think the smartest move for the district is to buy something that is near new, and drive it till the.
Mhm. And that's what we've always done.
We don't want the
We've
wheels
always
to
been
fall
near
off.
people.
No.
Yeah.
The day before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are these,
Speaking
what
of,
are these
yeah.
at work? What do you do with them?
These out here.
Yeah.
Well, I think our policy says that we have to advertise them, take bids on them, and sell them. We could also run them out to the auto auction if there's any interest in doing that.
Mhm. We might hang on to the 5th one though. The
Yeah.
demand that we've had for the 12 passenger vans for coaches seems to have gone up a
Okay.
little bit. So we might keep that one as a spare for a little while and see how often it gets used before we decide
Close
to do
trips.
that. Close trips like,
So you want loading view?
well, and not even that, like some of them just run them to,
Well, and
like, I'm
sometimes you
gonna
have
have
a
kids
problem
here
with
for
busing.
practice or
So-
whatever. Yeah, so we might just hang on to it.
Because
For
it's
the
not
while.
worth much if you run it.
Yeah.
You take
I mean,
it out there once they
it's got
have
some
show
rust on it
rust
and
and
it's
things
got
like
over,
that.
it's got over 100,000 miles on it and it's got some rust on it, so.
Outside of the rust, do they run okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not like worrying about them breaking down on the side of the road.
We have done some repairs over the past couple of years they've started to kind of build up. They did tell us that those vans, because of the wear that is done with those vans, they don't hold up to like something that you would typically drive your day-to-day vehicles. It's just because they're big vans, they're, you know, they're.
Is it your battery?
No,
What is that?
Oh.
Like 2 to 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Eats the sad face.
What is the sad face? I'm
Well, I
sure.
don't do that
Can't really
anymore.
do it.
Mine's like a this stuff.
So anyway, that's how we're gonna try to do this.
That's where I was just
And,
watching the
hopefully
board.
we can get it to work, so. I'd appreciate if somebody to get a motion.
And I would like to
Do
add
we
to
need
that
to-
motion that it would be paid for out of the general fund.
Okay.
The purchase of one van?
Right.
Per, purchase of one van,
One bit.
okay. I'll make a motion, I just read this.
Yeah, but add.
I will, what am I adding?
Channel.
To the general fund. I will make a motion to authorize the purchase of a 12-passenger van for an amount not to exceed $55,000 as discussed and coming from the general fund.
I'll second it.
All right, thanks Cass and Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Cassie Klesner,
Yes.
Chase Craddock,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
I'm going to abstain. Conflict.
and Jason Knott.
Yes. Okay, very good. Motion carries. Item 8.5, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve substitute certificated teacher pay for school year. Dr. Lewis.
Yeah, so our conference array is revealed a couple of things. Our regular day, I mean, we can still consider increasing a little bit if you'd like, but at $165 per day, which is what we currently pay certificated teachers to be a substitute in our building, that is high average. So we're in a pretty good position as far as that goes. I'm a little uncomfortable that some schools are doing better on long-term sub rates than we are. I would say that we're low average on our long-term sub rates, and considering that we have a need to fill several long terms this year, it's probably a good year to have a discussion about maybe bumping a long-term rate up a little bit. So we currently are at $165 a day for regular subs, and that bumps up to $180 a day on day 10 and thereafter if they're in the same position and they don't have a discontinuation of service in that position. But there's several districts that go right up to $200, and then some go a little bit more than that. So like if they have a 185-day contract, they pay a per diem of the base rate, which ends up being, for us, would be like $100 or be like $216 a day. But I mean, I just think it's the right time to maybe go a little bit higher on that long term, because there is a lot more commitment involved to being a long-term sub than just saying yes or no, I can come in on Wednesday, or however you look at it. So, thoughts?
Dr. Lewis, how many instances do we average once that long term has been enacted? Like, is that something that happens like a couple times a year, or?
This year it's gonna be like 4 or 5, because we have maternity
Okay.
leaves. So it typically comes with that, like if somebody would have like a long illness or a long injury, but for us, the majority of times, let's say 19 out of 20 times, it's a maternity leave.
Got it. So kind of can't prepare that.
Right.
And is that built into the budget we previously discussed?
Yes, it's built in to a certain extent. I might have to adjust it a little bit, but I can adjust it out of a different category. So I'm not terribly worried about that. It's going to, I don't know, it's gonna be a matter of $2,000-3,000, not a significant amount. And I'll just code it into subs and not a different.
Got it.
Less consequential planning.
So talking about keeping the current rate at 165, but then more of the long-term.
Yeah, I would do a little bit better on the long term. Yeah, even if we could go to like 190 or 200, it would be better than staying at 180 there, because an extra $15 a day is not a big incentive to take on that long term.
Mhm.
And like I said, you give up. I mean, if you're a sub and you're like that intermittent, but we really need a long-term sub, tell me why I should come for a month every single day. You know what I mean? So just to give it a little bit more.
We've had, correct me if I'm wrong, I know of at least one that's gone from a long-term sub to full-time. I think of one off the top of my head, but
Mhm.
Okay.
So your recommendation is $200 a day?
My recommendation is 200, but
Okay.
I mean, anything more than 180 would be welcome and nice.
Well, I think the board should follow your recommendation because your office is the one that has to recruit them, hire them, and, you
Thanks,
know, yeah.
I appreciate
Okay.
that. Mhm.
All right, I'll make a motion to set the 2023-2024 substitute certificated teacher rates at $165 a day, increasing to $200 per day at day 10 and thereafter for long-term subs.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Chase. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Chase Credible,
Yes.
Brian Lunker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yep.
Jason Art,
Yes.
Cassie Fleisner.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. What do we have here? 8.6. Discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve a contract for occupational therapy related services as presented for the 23-24 school year.
So this is the same therapist that we had last year. Last year, it was through an interlocal agreement with Blair Community Schools. She's no longer working for Blair. They're not offering us the interlocal this year. So to keep a continuity of services for our kids, we'd like to contract with the group that she's now working for. And it's at the state rate. So the contract looks like for up to a day per week at the state rate. And it's basically as needed, correct, Dr. Morgan? Because this is based on what an IEP says that a student needs. But last year, a day per week, and so she'll bill that out hourly, or Blue Door will bill that out hourly. Last year, we were committed to 12 monthly installments of $1,700 or whatever it was on the interlocal with Blair. So my guess is this is gonna balance us out. We might even come out a little bit better than where we were last year. It's kind of hard to predict, but right now it's.
Thoughts or questions? Here's a motion.
Oh, sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
So we don't know exactly what the cost is going to be for
We
this
know,
yet?
we know the state rate,
The
and
state
we know the approximate hours that we need her right now.
Yeah.
But sometimes like you get new IEPs and suddenly you need her a little bit more,
Okay.
or you exit somebody and it could be a little bit less.
Okay, so we already have it kind of budgeted for this
Yes.
as to what we
Yeah.
think it might be.
I budgeted it to cost us the same as what the interlocal with Blair cost us last year.
Mhm.
And then we'll just kind of have to watch that line item and see how that comes out by next year, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want a motion, Cass?
I don't see a thing.
Oh, did I not type
It
that
says
in?
action item, but there's not.
So if you just say motion to approve and then.
Oh, I see it. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I will make a motion to approve the contract for occupational therapy related services as presented for the 2023-2024 school year.
I'll second it.
Thanks, guys. Cassie and Chase. Any more discussion? Well, let's vote.
Brian Lunker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Art,
Yes.
Cassie Fleisner,
Yes.
Chase Credible.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. How exciting. Let's go to item 8.7. Discuss, consider, take necessary action to discontinue accreditation process with Cognia and transition to Nebraska Continuous School Improvement Frameworks for accreditation.
Okay, so we talked about this in June, that the admin team had these discussions about the cost, about the user friendliness of the Cognia system, which was Advanced Ed, which was North Central Accreditation years ago. They keep transitioning, they keep changing. Every time we have a new visit, we have to learn a new system, we have to upload new things. We can't really do our own thing and just turn it over to them. We have to do our own thing and then put it in the format that they want and then upload all sorts of things. And so it hasn't always been great to work with them, and they'd like to come and do like a 2.5 day visit. It's more expensive. So we talked about this as a team a few times in our team meetings last year, and then we brought it up. So I don't even honestly know if the board has to make this decision,
Okay.
but I wanted to have it on a motion that we were switching to that because it's pretty easy to switch. I just contact them and they let the Department of Education know that we're gonna go with the Nebraska Frameworks process.
Okay.
That is they still have the surveys, they still have the tools that we need.
Mhm.
We get to do it our way, send it to them, they send out a team, it's a 1-day deal. We don't have a review for a couple of years, so we've got plenty of time to work our way through their system, but.
Okay.
I think it's one way to kind of simplify life for the people, right, and coordinate all this stuff.
I'll make a motion to discontinue with cognitive accreditation and utilize Nebraska Continuous Improvement Process frameworks for accreditation.
I'll second.
Thanks, Cassie. We're rolling along. Any more discussion? Jen? Vote?
Matt Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Stark,
Yes.
Cassie Flessner,
Yes.
Chase Cradaville,
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Welcome. 8.8, discuss, consider and take necessary action to adjust adult breakfast and lunch prices as required by the state and federal hot lunch program. We're going to 275 breakfast and 460 lunch,
Yes.
is that right?
So last month, we
Yes, I already
approved, we did,
Yeah, it gets-
we did
yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
We did all of them last month. We did adults, we did everybody up a nickel. Because Julie said they're gonna make us go up, just have everybody go up a nickel. So then she had her training with the SFA and the different departments, and they said, oh, no, your adult prices have to be at least this for breakfast and at least that for lunch, or else your general fund needs to make up the difference between what you're charging and what you should be charging and transfer that every month. So
So let's not
this
do that.
seems easier
Yeah.
than that. So
Okay.
so we can either subsidize all of the adults that eat lunch, or we can just charge them another 75 cents over what we were going to do. So the rates that they said she has to charge is $2.75 for breakfast and $4.60 for lunch. And the advice is free.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's been on fire.
She has.
All right,
I think the new knees.
who's gonna make a motion?
I will motion to increase the adult breakfast to $2.75 and lunch to $4.60 for the prices as discussed.
Second it.
Thanks, Cass and Brian. Yeah, it's still a great bargain if you want to come up and eat lunch.
It
Under
is.
$5
It's
lunch,
a lot of food,
Yeah.
salad bars included.
you get milk. Yeah,
Thanks for that.
let's vote, please.
Jason Stark,
Yes.
Cassie Flessner,
Yes.
Chase Cradaville,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt Daniel.
Yes. All right, very good. Motion carries. Still a bargain. Last item on the agenda, 8.9, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the contract for Arbor Family Counseling.
So we looked at the use report last month.
Mhm.
Took a look. So this would be, there's two separate agreements on here. The first one is for the on-site counselor, if you go in that order, so the one you've got up there, yeah. So we've been contracting them for several years for the on-site counselor. You see that's 3 hours a week at $70 an hour with travel time for both semesters. So that's the total cost no, that's just hourly. They bill that out for us. I think it ends up being about $3,000 on the year. That counselor is full. She's seeing a lot of kids for that price. And she has some great relationships with them. We've got a good thing going as far as that goes. The second piece of that contract then is the actual contract for the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, and for all students to use it off-site. So they get 2 free consultation visits and then 3 free treatment plan visits, so per incident, so it can work out to 5. So anybody who's associated with the school, staff members, family members, spouses, students, parents, we can refer anybody to those. So that's what the usage report that you looked at. The usage report that you looked at did not include the on-site hours. That's not part of that. It was just people who used the off-site. So, and that has not really changed much in price since we've contracted with them. So, and that ends up being about $8,465 and it's split out in quarterly billings.
One of any questions for Dawn? I know this is, this is something, what do we call it, emotional health and well-being that we identified,
Yeah.
this board did.
Behavior and mental health.
Yeah, thank you. 5-6 years ago, it was on there when you came in, wasn't it? Or
Nope,
did we add it?
it was one
Year
of
one.
the first year, I think I was here, we added it.
And I kind of always felt like we were a little bit ahead of the curve on that. And when you see these usage reports and everything, it's good to see it getting utilized because there's so much out there today. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the contract with Arbor Family Counseling for the 23-24 school year.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Chase. Any more discussion? Let's vote, Jen.
Cassie Plessner,
Yes.
Chase Crowder,
Yes.
Brian Locker, Matt
Yes.
O'Daniel,
Yes.
Jason Arnold.
Yes.
All right, very good. That motion carries and we are adjourning at 8:01 PM. Thanks, everybody.
An hour.
There's no seniors here yet.
Nobody here to sign out.
Doesn't count the
Well,
First meeting